So just a couple of tips when you are running these models is like, ask yourself, what is it that you're trying to answer, right? So before you spend the time trying to run the models and asking other people for inputs, what is the actual question? Okay. Make sure you have good data and then update it as you go. So a lot of times when you're doing your due diligence, you don't have all the information. Okay, so update it as you go. Triple check your calculations, triple check your formulas, and definitely ask somebody to help you check it as well. Okay, run as many scenarios as you can that you think is relevant for what you're working on. Don't just run a scenario just for the sake of running a scenario. Like, make sure it's relevant for what you're doing. Take someone else's sheet and learn off of it. So if you're not good at Excel, take one of my sheets. Like, there's so many sheets out there. You're basically going to trace the formulas, trace the cells. And that's one of the best ways to learn, is use somebody else's formula. Okay, so there's so many sheets out there. Okay, and then at the end of the day, make a decision on the opportunities that you're looking at. Okay, so now one last thing, of course, okay, if all else fails, partner up with somebody who knows how to do Excel. Okay. All right. And of course, one last suggestion is, don't let financial modeling be something that holds you back. Okay. So what I've seen over the years is a lot of people will have analysis paralysis. It's like, let me analyze 5 more deals. Let me get a better understanding of this. Let me get a better understanding of that. Let me get this one last number. Nuh-uh. Okay. Run your numbers and then make a decision. You don't want to be the one that doesn't make any actions because you're stuck. Okay, so let me share with you guys the Excel sheets. Oh, okay, so I'm not going to share the land one. What I'm going to share with you guys is this MIC. So recently, I had a person come to me with an opportunity to take my private lends and reposition them into a MIC. Like, the way it works is that I would fund a private lend on a mortgage and then basically put that private lend into the MIC, right? So it's a different company altogether. And so, for example, let's just say, you know, there's a property that's worth 1.5 million. So they have to put down a 20% down payment. So there's a mortgage of 1.2 left on it. Okay, so this person needs a mortgage of 1.2. I would be the one providing the mortgage. Okay, I would charge them a 10% rate. So now, rather than me holding that mortgage, I would go to this MIC and say, hey, MIC, I have this first mortgage. Let's split it, A and B. Okay. So now what's going to happen is there's going to be a segment of 80% and a segment of 20% on the 1.2. So basically, I've taken this mortgage and I've just moved it to another institution. Okay. But now what they're going to do now is give me a markup on my 10%. Okay, so somebody's going to give me 10%. I'm going to turn around and give it to a MIC, and the MIC's going to pay me a top up on that 10% mortgage. Right? So at the beginning, I'm like, hey, that sounds great. I'll double end all of my deals, right? I'll get money from the borrower and then I'll get money from the MIC. Like, of course, like, why wouldn't I do that? Well, so part of the discovery while I was talking to them was that, okay, well, the minute they fund the money back to me, okay, I have to actually pay them interest on the extra money that I'm borrowing, right? So they're going to turn around and give me back the 1.2 million that I lent to somebody else. So then I can turn it and lend it to a second mortgage person, right? So for me, this sounded like a great opportunity because, you know, my 1.2 is already gone, right? So now I can have another 1.2 coming through the back door, right? And then if I take that 1.2 and lend that out, then I'll have another 1.2 for a third property, right? So it was sort of like, hey, okay, I just need to perpetually put this in motion and I'll always have more cash to lend out, right? So it sort of made sense. But then what happened was it turned out that it wasn't worth it for me to do it, because now I have to actually charge 13% at a minimum or more to make that spread worth it for me to have that risk. When I first was running the numbers, you know, I did one scenario and I'm like, no, the calculations aren't right here. I can't do it this way. So then I ran this model, right? And saying, okay, so this is what it would look like. And then when I go into my deal 2, then this is what it would look like, right? And so from running it this way, I realized that it wasn't worth my time to fund my mortgages through this MIC. But the only way I could come up with that decision was by running a model. Any comments or questions?
You were good until they flipped it on you at the end.
Yes. Yep. So their argument when they were trying to present this to me was that, well, Hung,
Yeah.
you would be able to help more families by giving them mortgages. And I'm like, yes, that is true, but I'm not willing to put any of my properties up on collateral, and I'm not willing to have to pay out of my pocket every month to be able to give another family a mortgage, right? They didn't have a good enough business case to justify why I would pay out every month on top of the mortgage I just funded for somebody else. Okay, so let me now share the 400 equity from Addie's deal, and you guys can see what I did there. So Addie, feel free to jump in if I did any of this wrong or if something doesn't look right. So the purchase price on the car wash is $2 million. The appraisal came back at 2.4. The gain is 400. So that's where we're saying, hey, you know what? We're making 400K at the time of purchase. So from day one, we've seen this equity. Okay, now it's not money in my pocket, but it's equity on paper. Okay, so then I ran this model saying, hey, you know what? We have to, close or raise 550,000 roughly. And so if we did a 30-70 split, right, 70% going to the LPs. So if somebody came in with 10% of the money, it would be about 78,000. So for 78,000, they would have 10% equity. Okay, so this is your normal, GPL LP calculation, right? I just wanted to know at this point, okay, for the 70% that we need to raise, which is the 550, right? So we're going to have X number of investors coming in, 550. They're going to have the equivalent of 70% LP. Okay, so 70% equity, 70% ownership. So 10% of that is roughly 79,000. Okay, so then I said, okay, well, there's an extra 400,000. So what does that actually mean, right? So the profit that we make on the buy is 400,000 automatically right there. So originally I ran the numbers saying, okay, well, you know what? If we're buying it at 240, we're going to need 650 to close. I ran this number, and so that's an instant increase of 18.2% profit on the money. And I'm like sitting there going, oh yeah, okay, that's a great return automatically, right? But then I realized, well, no, like we don't need more money to close. Like we only need 550. So this calculation here isn't right. So then I said, okay, well, let me figure out another way to calculate this. So then basically what I just said, okay, well, the GP is at 30%, okay, but the LP is at 70. So 70% of 400 is 280. So that means that the LP automatically will make 280K from day one because of this 400K equity, right? So until I ran the model, it was just 400K. But what does 400K actually mean, right? So now I'm like, okay, well, we need to get about 550,000, but the LPs are actually seeing a lift on their money, right? So instead of just 550, it's actually worth 700 or 830,000, which is a 50% automatic equity that goes to the LPs. Besides presenting it to you guys, I'm not really going to be presenting it to anybody else, right? But it was good for me to know, okay, well, the GP is going to instantly make 120,000 and the LPs are instantly going to make 280 because of the 400K lift in the in the buy-in because of the appraisal amount.
Right on the spot.
Okay, yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that was all I had around the financial modeling. Okay, so, you know, like I said, it really is just you going and spending the time to run the model, right? And just practicing and being very patient with yourself while you're going through it if you don't know how to do the financial modeling. Okay, so you should see the last screen. I am going to open it up to comments, questions, anything at this point anybody wants to share with me or share with the group.